Hey friends, this is the Miss Wolfie from Our Half Acre Homestead, and today I'm going to show you the beginnings of a paper-pieced grandmother's flower garden quilt. Now in the past, you've seen the video I made of sewing together a grandmother's flower garden quilt by hand. It's called hand piecing. All that stitching there, every piece in this quilt I've hand stitched. I just take one stitch and then I stitch back through it again. And then I very carefully do a running stitch along that 1/8 of an inch place to the pin. And I stop dead at the pin. But someone recently commented that I should try paper piecing, and to me it seemed like a lot of extra work. I gave it some thought and I thought I'd try it just to see how I liked it, and you know what, I really liked it. I liked it enough that I'm starting a new grandmother's flower garden quilt, only because the one that I did complete was sent away to England and I may never see it again, and so I want to make another one because this is actually going to seem to be much easier to make than the original. This is what it looks like. You don't necessarily need a pattern for this. All you need is one block, one paper block. What I have done is I copied off 6 of the original blocks, and I actually enlarged them to the size that I wanted them, and I laid them on my copier, and I used old sheets that I'm not going to use again, and I photocopied dozens of these sheets of blocks. One of the things that you have to do is you have to be precise with your cutting. Okay? These all have to be exactly the same size, within 1/100th of an inch, I'm going to say. All right? Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to show you how we go from here. Now the needles I'm using, you don't want huge, great big sewing needles. I know you think you may want them because you'll be sewing through paper for the first part, but you don't. Okay? Now I'm going to show you how I make a knot in my thread. We're going to thread our needle with a single thickness of thread. You don't want it double thick because this thread's only temporary. I'm going to take the end of the thread and I'm going to wrap it twice around my finger, and I'm going to grab it with my thumb and roll it and then grab like this and pull. And you have a perfect knot every time. Okay. Now that we have a precise cut template, we're going to take a piece of fabric, and the only thing about your fabric is your fabric doesn't have to be precise. It just has to fit all the way around the paper. It can be square, it can be round. If you want to be fancy, you can cut it to match the paper, but who wants to do the extra cutting? As long as you have at least a 1/4 inch all the way around your paper template, you'll be fine. Now we're going to fold this over. What we're going to do is we're going to baste the fabric to the paper template. So you're going to fold this over, and then when we get to the corner, we're going to fold the fabric over again. And you're going to fold it so that it fits the paper. Okay? Then you're going to take your thread and you're just going to poke it through all the layers of fabric and the paper, all the way to the knot. Then you're going to come in behind, halfway across your side of your template here, so that you have one single thickness thread basted stitch. And when you get to the center there, you're going to fold your next corner over. Then we're going to put this through this corner, just like that, and pull, and then we're going to turn, and we're going to bring it in through the back, and we're going to fold it, and you're basically just basting the fabric to the paper template. And you are going to leave these templates on until the quilt top is finished. It may sound ridiculous, but what this does is it keeps your quilt top nice and crisp. And then when you're done, when the quilt top is ready to be quilted, you will cut out all these basting stitches with just a snip along these big stitches. You'll just snip them and then pull the threads out, and then you will take your paper out. And then your paper templates that you have worked so hard to cut are reusable for another project. Okay? So, if you do it correctly, as my father used to say, measure twice, cut once. Any job worth doing is worth doing right. So, pretty much all we have is a stitch on each side of our template. And now that I'm back to the beginning here, I'm going to bring my stitch back up through the center of our edge. And instead of tying another knot, I'm just going to go back through the last stitch I did so that it's not going to go anywhere, and I'm just going to cut my thread off. This is the beginning of a block. Okay? The way I do it, you can do it any way you want. You don't have to have everything color matched or whatever. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do the center blocks are white, and then I'm going to put a dark or light color on here, and then a contrasting color around the outside. Now I want to show you how we sew these together. When I'm making these, I'll sit and, you know, like today my back is giving me issues, so I'm just going to take it easy today. What you're going to have is you're going to need one center block, you're going to need 6 outside blocks, and for the final outside you're going to need 12. And then we're going to do white ones to intersect. But what I do is I will, once I have all my paper pieces cut, I will sit down and cut a bunch of fabric in squares that I know that they will fit. And then I will sit and piece. And when I get 6 of one color, I just take a single thickness of thread and I poke it through and I tie a knot so that I have like a little bundle, and I put it in my basket. And then I will do, you know, I'll do 12. So it doesn't matter what colors you have, but I will do 6 of one and a dozen of another, so that whatever I want to mix and match my colors, I always have the amount I need without overdoing or underdoing. There's nothing worse than sewing a block and finding you're one piece short, or you've worked really hard to make one piece too many. I'm going to start a block because I want to show you how I do it. And all I'm going to do is snip my single thread off my centers. Let's thread a needle. Now I'm going to do, a lot of people would do single thickness here as well, but I do double, because when I sew my pieces of fabric together, I want them to stay together. We're going to put our center block and the first block of our first row, and we're going to put them right sides of work facing, which means the paper is facing out. And we're going to line these up, and this is why you have to be really precise with your paper cutting measurements, because you want these blocks to be an exact match, which they are. We're going to take our thread, and not necessarily sewing through the paper, but grabbing the fabric at the edge of the paper, starting in a corner, we're going to sew these together. And this is just an over and over stitch. This is just a basic running stitch. You just want to make sure that you catch the fabric. These are ideal projects for winter when all your canning's done and your days have slowed down a little bit, and you have a little bit of spare time if you're watching TV in the evening or you're watching a movie. Now you only go as far as the opposite corner. And this is, for a grandmother's flower garden quilt, if you're going to attempt a grandmother's flower garden quilt, I'm going to tell you, this already is so much easier than my original one, because when you're sewing those pieces together, you actually have to stop a 1/4 inch from the corner precisely, and you can only sew them together a 1/4 inch down. This, your measuring's already done for you. There we go. Now I'm going to show you. All right, there is our sewed edge. It's easier to see along on the green, but when you open this, you have a precise sewn edge. Now I'm going to show you how I do the next one. All right, obviously I'm going to sew down here and down here, but we want to start by folding this in on the green. We're going to go exactly corner to corner. Make sure that your edge is nice and smooth. And again, we're going to start at the corner, exactly at the point of the corner. And this will be easier for you to see because I'm sewing white on dark green. All right, now I'm at the corner. And I'm going to give it a double stitch at the corner because your corners are stress points. Open it up. And now we have to sew this to this. And all we're going to do is fold it over and do the same sewing along. Always, again, do an extra stitch in the corners where your fabric or where your blocks join, because those are stress points. And really, folks, as long as you're careful with your cutting of your paper templates and the preciseness of your stitching along these lines, there is no reason why you can't make a precise block. Hexagons are heartbreakers, folks. If you don't get them exactly right, they can be a real problem when trying to fit this puzzle together. It's like any other, it is like a puzzle. If the piece doesn't fit, it's going to throw, and you force it, it's going to throw the entire thing off. So, measure twice, cut once. There are no shortcuts when it comes to doing this kind of project. It's a patience thing. If you don't have patience to do something this fine or this precise, then start with an easier project, like a simple tide quilt. This is not necessarily for the beginner. Okay? So, there it is, the start of a block. And this is what it's going to look like. And you can see how precise that is. I mean, I can lay this block on top of the other block and it is exact. So, once I get to the point where I have all of these blocks done, and I will show you how to do an outside block when I get to that point, I'll be back. Don't hold your breath. This is going to take time. It is a quilt, and it's not something I can rush. All right, this is the Mrs. Wolfe from Our Half Acre Homestead saying, if you're going to make a grandmother's flower garden quilt, paper piece it. Take care. Bye-bye.